Hi everybody, it's me, Mark Mann-Bryans and Ben Hunt from Autosport. We've had the Bellagio fountain, we've had the Sphere. Today we're in the paddock, we're going to play a bit of mini golf, and as we go around the course we're going to discuss the goings on in quite an interesting qualifying session ahead of tomorrow's Las Vegas Grand Prix. Come on Ben, I'm going to be warm.
Let's go swinging, mate.
Right, we're going to start on hole one. You're going to tee us off, Ben, because you were in the presser with George Russell, pole sitter. Bit of a differing session for him and Lewis. Talk us through what you think happened with the Mercedes.
I think, almost. Very intriguing, wasn't it? I mean, Mercedes have been quick all weekend. Topped every single session so far. And they've come into qualifying and we think that they're going to be quick again. And lo and behold, George is on pole and Lewis is nowhere. And it's quite... We've seen this with Mercedes, haven't we? They seem to have this ability to hit a run together and look good and look strong. And then all of a sudden, the cars separate. And it's usually George that's benefiting and Lewis going in the opposite direction. Of course, you was down at the TV pen. Lewis didn't really talk very much.
No, he wasn't there very long. It's been a theme this season though, of Lewis struggling on a Saturday or Friday as it is today, hasn't it? And a couple of errors actually. The pace is obviously in the car. The track is suiting them. It's a dusty track. We know yesterday Toto said they love a dusty track.
Yeah.
You also learned a little insight into the preparations, I guess, of George Russell today.
Yeah, he told us they had a little snooze before qualifying, which was slightly different. He curled up in his driver's room and said that he listened to music of waves crashing, did a bit of meditating and chilled out. So that's working for him. Getting back to that point about Mercedes, what works, what doesn't work, it leaves them scratching their head because they can't figure out why they're quick on one particular track. His other pole was at Silverstone and Canada and here. So you could say that maybe it's due to temperatures, lower temperatures at those races, but perhaps that's it. But Mercedes are going, why are we quick? And then they get lured into a sense of maybe it's this car setup. They'll take it to Qatar next week and it won't be quick at all. So it's baffling and they need to get on top of it in order to be quick next year.
Tomorrow, George got the pace to win, do we think?
Oh, that was underwhelming, wasn't it? George definitely has the pace to win. I think probably the biggest concern for him will be a certain Max Verstappen behind him. Overnight this track does funny things because obviously it returns to being a road, so you've got road cars going over it. That's going to make it dusty and dirty again, and with no support series, there's going to be so many unknowns going into turn one at the start of the race. Of course they'll do formation laps, but they don't usually take the racing line on that. So it's going to be dusty and dirty going into turn one, and I think they're all going to be a bit mindful about Max being behind him. Max obviously can win the championship here this weekend if he finishes ahead of Lando Norris. So I think that's probably going to be his concern, but if it's on pace alone, absolutely he can win. Lewis
will also fancy a bit of a charge when you think he's got a Haas ahead of him, there's an Alpine ahead of him. McLaren aren't looking particularly impressive. We'll come on to that in a second. So Lewis will fancy a bit of a charge up the field as well, I think, won't he?
I mean, Lewis is always about comeback drives, isn't it, when he's further back? And, we saw one actually from Max Verstappen in the last race in Sao Paulo. But Lewis tends to be king of the comebacks when it comes to stuff like that. And, he'll dig deep. And, he may be dejected tonight, but I'm sure he'll come back tomorrow all fighting. But I thought, it's quite impressive today. I thought, Carlos Sainz did really well and Pierre Gasly as well. I was very impressed with him qualifying in third for Alpine after such a strong result last weekend in Sao Paulo.
Let's move on to hole number 2. We spoke about the people at the front, but there's a championship on offer tomorrow, potentially. But both Verstappen and Norris didn't have the days to remember, really, did they?
Yeah, Red Bull's had a miserable run here, haven't they, at the moment? The last couple of days have been very difficult. You've got Max complaining about the steering wheel, Perez complaining about everything. Very disappointing from him. I think Max still has his work cut out as well. All he needs to do is finish in front of Lando. Ideally, a win will seal it, and he can win the title. I'm still not ruling him out. He's still there. He's still got the ability to win. So let's see what happens tomorrow.
Yeah, he was in the pen with us actually, Max, and he seemed fairly upbeat. He was making the odd joke. Someone asked, where did you actually struggle today? And he said, on the straights and the corners. So he was quite happy with that. He's worried about the tyres tomorrow. He's worried about the long run pace, but he also knows that he's got Lando Norris behind him, and that'll be massively important for not being on the front of the grid, for not setting the pace, but knowing he's actually ahead of his title rival. That's all you need really at this stage, isn't it?
Yeah, I think he's kind of at ease with himself, isn't he? And I think that's the thing this year, that we've seen a maturity with Max. He knows that it's not going to be won on the first corner of the first lap. I mentioned it before about him coming barrel rolling in, but generally he knows just to not go for it on lap one. So he'll be confident, I think, going in tomorrow. I don't think he's just going to do everything on that first lap.
Yeah. Perez got out. He's gone in Q1.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, he just can't buy any luck, can he? I know that his post comments were about blaming a lot of things, and I was a bit facetious earlier on, saying he's blaming everything other than himself. But, you know, he's got to start looking at himself to understand where he's going wrong. You know, Max has had moments this year where things haven't gone right for him. Yeah, he's dug deep and he's come back. You know, no wins since Spain, then all of a sudden he's sort of hit form at the right moment just to clinch this title. Whereas Perez, they've given him every opportunity. They've made changes to the car to suit him, and it's just not working. So they need to find out why, because time's running out. And I firmly believe that he may have that contract in place for next year. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be driving that car next year. And I think time's running out for him to justify Red Bull's faith in him.
Liam Lawson, I suppose, his performance was a little bit off as well, which will please Perez. But then you look at Tsunoda getting all the way through to Q3, putting it between the two McLarens.
Yeah,
it's not all a given that Checo Perez is going to be sitting in a car next year, really, is it?
I think that's what we're actually seeing now is the benefit that Red Bull have with running two teams, and you know, it keeps the pressure on the driver that's in the A team, in that Red Bull team, knowing that there's people behind pushing to get into that seat. So that's kind of what it's doing. It's driving forward. You know, Perez knows he's got to start delivering. For whatever reason, it's not happening, and he needs to look at himself to figure out what's going wrong.
Not unhappy, but would have expected a little bit more from that session. The Ferraris looked really quick over the course of the weekend. Not quite as sharp as some of the other teams.
I'm struggling here.
You are.
I'm back in this place again.
Not quite as sharp as the Mercedes, but Sainz almost stuck it on pole. Well done.
Thank you, mate.
That would have been a good achievement for them. I'd like to point out now, when we were in the front of the Bellagio the other day, I predicted a Ferrari win here. That could still happen tomorrow, I guess, couldn't it?
Ferrari have looked strong, haven't they, last couple of races, and I think they're putting it together at the right time. They've gone under the radar for much of this season. They're in this championship fight. You know, everyone's talking about McLaren going to win the title, the Constructors' title, and then they're also looking at Red Bull maybe making a late comeback. But Ferrari are the ones, they're the dark horse, if you excuse the pun, that could still win this championship. So, yeah, don't discount them. Charles Leclerc as well, also looking good today.
Could be a few issues again for the Williams team. The last thing James Vowles and everyone would have wanted to see is another car going into the wall, and that we've learned since qualifying that could actually bleed in tomorrow, haven't we?
Yeah, shame. Franco Colapinto. We saw the medical car deployed, and usually what that means is that the impact of the shunt is usually such that they send the medical team in case there is, a case of concussion, which indeed turns out to be the case. I think the impact was measured at 50 G, so substantial impact. If he's feeling groggy, Williams aren't going to take a chance to put him in the car. I mean, there was a question mark whether that car will even be ready.
The Colapinto bubble, is it bursting ever so slightly? There was this big furore for him to have to stay in a team next year. We think he still might stay in a team next year. He's hit the wall again today. He's had a couple of shunts. Is the shine coming off that debut year for him a little bit?
Maybe. I mean, he's still learning, isn't he? You know, he hasn't had the experience that some of these drivers have had, you know, that have come into teams. You know, someone like Kimi Antonelli has had so much time with Mercedes and in the simulator and all these tests and everything, and Colapinto has been sort of dropped in at the deep end, so he's doing his learning in the harshest environment in front of all of us with all the cameras and, you know, tricky tracks as well. And yeah, he did get caught out today. Too early to say whether the bubbles burst. I mean, he's done well in those races where he scored points, so, you know, still impressive rookie performance as far as I'm concerned, but he just needs to cut out those errors now, try and keep it clean in the next two races, assuming he's allowed to race in Qatar next week because of this concussion issue.
Right, we're on the final hole, Ben. I'm leading, I think, but let's do some predictions for what we think will actually happen in the race tomorrow. I mean,
well,
does that count?
That's not so bad, is it? That's third. Podium, who's going to be third?
Oh, I like that. Who's going to be third? Max Verstappen's going to be third, and he's going to become world champion.
I'm going to say George Russell in third.
I like that. Right, I'll get number 2, and then it'll be fantastic.
Oh, close.
Not bad. Who's going to come second?
Carlos Sainz for me. I've been impressed with him all weekend. I thought he's done, really well today. What about you?
George Russell will finish second tomorrow for me. Just like you're about to finish second at the golf. The big question as we wrap up, though, is who's going to win tomorrow?
Well, I said Max Verstappen at the start of the week, didn't I? Red Bull have had all their problems this week, and we spoke about, the rear wing and downforce and not feeling at home in the car, but I still think he's got enough to surprise us, and I still think that he'll win. Carlos
Sainz is going to win the Grand Prix tomorrow. I predicted a Ferrari win back in front of the Bellagio fountains and was mocked by you and Emily, but I'm going to stick with Ferrari. And yeah, Max Verstappen will still win the World Championship though, I think.
Let's see who was right. Well played, mate.
Well done, and thank you to ESPN for the loan of the mini golf course.